with the progress of time, it is seen that uh, the scope of different academic disciplines and subject is expanding due to emergence of new uh, disciplines or emergence of new areas of study in the subjects, and also with exhaustive studies of the existing knowledge in those subjects. Certain knowledge, certain concepts of different subjects, although seem recently emerged, but if we dive deeper into those concepts and knowledge, we get to know that those concepts could be traced back to ancient times. Those concepts, knowledge were discussed in different ancient scriptures, textbooks, or were discussed by ancient philosophers and thinkers. That is why, before tagging any concept as modern or new, it is very important for all of us to understand the root of those concepts, those knowledge. That is why it becomes very crucial for us to understand the ancient knowledge system that could be of India, West, or any part of the world. And such a concept will be studied in today's lecture. Hello, this is Dhrubajit Gogoi, an assistant professor in the Department of Economics at Dispur College, Guwahati. The topic of my today's lecture is ARTHASHASTRA, the ancient blueprint for political economy. Let's start. So here I present the table of contents of my today's lecture. So let's start with understanding what is political economics. Political economics is a branch of economics that studies how politics affects the economy and how the economy in turn shapes politics. So basically the association that exists between the political science and economics. So that association, the relationship is studied in political economics. So in political economics, we study generally about inequality, which is present across class, gender, race, ethnicity, redistribution of income and wealth, economic development, welfare, globalization, and several other macroeconomic and environmental policies. So these are different concepts that we study under political economics. We often see questions in the headlines of newspapers, in different media channels, questions like, the last 4 decades have seen a sharp rise in inequality in rich democracies. Why? Why do some countries grow at a much faster pace than others? So questions like these often arise. But in order to address these questions, we have to understand both the political dimension and economic dimension of any happening. So to resolve any issue related to such questions or to address such questions, we have to study political economics, because there are certain happenings that occur in today's time or even before that can not just be solved through economic perspectives, that also requires a political angle to it. That is why this political economics or study of political economics is very much needed in the sphere of economics. So that is the basic crux of the political economics. Now let's move on to understanding Arthashastra. The Arthashastra, as we all know, it is an ancient Indian treatise on politics, economics, military strategy, the function of the state and social organization. So this Arthashastra was written around 300 BCE by Kautilya, who is also known as Chanakya. Kautilya was the prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya, and Chandragupta Maurya is the founder of the Maurya Empire. So this Arthashastra is a kind of handbook for Chandragupta Maurya, written by Kautilya, in order to instruct the king, the Chandragupta Maurya, in order to let him know how to reign over a kingdom, what should be the strategies to run a kingdom, what should be the strategies for economic progress, development, what should be different things we should be looking at in order to improvise the political state, diplomatic ties, law and order. So everything was discussed in the book ARTHASHASTRA, which was written by Kautilya, and we have to mind this, that it actually acted as a handbook to the king of Maurya Empire, Chandragupta Maurya. So the name of the book that comes from the Sanskrit word Artha, which means aim or goal, and Shastra, which means treatise or book. So as we translate this, we get this as the science of politics, or the science of political economy, or we can say this as the science of material gain. So this Arthashastra is basically a comprehensive guide. As we have already come to understand, it's about law and order, it's about politics, it's about economics, military strategy. So it is a comprehensive guide towards how an administration should be run, how diplomacy should be maintained, how taxes should be imposed, how revenue should be collected. So it's all about that. Basically, it gives any ruler, any king, strategies or different ways how the king should perform well for the betterment of the citizens. So this Arthashastra is really one of the most prominent textbooks of ancient times. Now let's understand the association between political economics and Arthashastra. Why we are bringing this lecture in this class? So this political economics, this Arthashastra book, which was written by Kautilya, this could be regarded as one of the first textbooks of political economics, and he could be regarded as one of the first political economists. In Arthashastra, several political ideas such as wealth, taxation, distribution of income, inequality, development, how wealth should be generated, how it should be maximized, how taxation should be imposed, how it should be administered, what should be the ways of distributing income among people, how inequality should be reduced, how it could be removed, or how development could be ensured in a country, in a nation, by the king, by the ruler. All those ideas of political economics were elaborately discussed in Arthashastra by Kautilya. But here we cannot discuss all the ideas. We will just stick to what Kautilya has to talk about taxation, what he has to offer to us about taxation, what his views and what are the principles laid down by him in regard to taxation. That's what we will be delving into in today's lecture. So taxation and finance. So here in part 8 of chapter 1 of the Kautilya's Arthashastra, there is a statement, something like, there is a statement which reads as Kosha Muludanda, which means revenue is the backbone of administration. So revenue is actually the backbone, because we know that the status of a country relies upon its fiscal power. He also stated that it is the king who is responsible for managing all sorts of economic affairs of the state. That includes imposition of taxes, collection of taxes, how expenditure should be made, how revenues will be generated or collected, and how other law and order will be maintained. So all sorts of economic and political affairs need to be taken care by the king. And he also stated that he made a point that a monarch would never experience a financial crisis if he keeps a careful eye on the income and expenses of the state, basically the treasury. The king has to be very much watchful towards the treasury of the state, because it would ensure the fiscal power of the state. That's how the administration will be run, with that fiscal power. So the king should be very much careful related in regard to treasury. In addition, he stated that a sound treasury was seen as one of the 7 components of the state's sovereignty. So by treasury we mean how the revenue is collected, how revenue is spent on, and is there any deficit, is there any surplus. So all these things come under treasury. So we can state that a strong treasury would ensure strong fiscal power for any nation. And if the fiscal power of any nation is strong, that would ensure a strong administration. And if there is strong administration, then definitely the nation will be a strong one. So revenue generation, it could be stated that revenue generation is an important economic affair for every nation. The king, to whom the government or the administration belongs, is solely responsible for execution of several steps for generation of revenue, which is needed in order to maintain law and order, to ensure development in the state. And out of all the sources of revenue, taxation is one of the most important sources of revenue for the state. And in ancient times, when ARTHASHASTRA was written, land revenue, it is the land revenue, which was an important, not just important, it was one of the largest source of revenue for the state. So now let's understand what are the Kautilya's views on taxation, what he has stated about taxation in his treatise, ARTHASHASTRA. So Kautilya's views on taxation, if we look into this, we'll come to know that Kautilya regarded tax as Rajkar. He also stated that he also wrote so much about taxation. He extensively dealt with taxation, and he believed that taxes should be levied to fund public expenditure. To fund public expenditure means spending by the king or by the government in order to fulfill the needs, demands and desires of the citizens, and also to maintain law and order, support functioning of the government, and ensure economic development and promote welfare for the betterment of citizens. And in order to fulfill those needs, we should impose taxes on people in a state. He stated that a good tax system is one that does not create any burden on the people. And related to that, what he stated is that the king who collects the tax, he should act like the bee which collect honey without inconveniencing the plant. By this, what he meant is that we should collect tax, but while collecting tax, that should not create inconvenience to the taxpayers. So we should be very mindful to this thing. Then only a tax system could be regarded as a good one. Now, regarding tax rates of taxation, what Kautilya said, that tax rates should be low. In almost all cases, it should not go above 16 to 20%. Because if it goes above that, it could hinder economic activity or even encourage tax cheating or evasion by the taxpayers. But he suggested that tax rates of up to 50% or higher could be imposed on those goods and services that has a negative repercussions in the society. He believed in the progressive tax system, which is helpful in redistributing wealth and reducing income inequality. He stated that we should impose taxes on the basis of the ability to pay off people. We should not just directly impose people that you have to pay this much or you have to pay that much. No, we have to consider whether they are able or not. Considering that, we should impose taxation, and while imposing taxation, we should follow the principle of progressive taxation. At that time, in ARTHASHASTRA, Kautilya mentioned that there were exemption in taxation as well for certain group of peoples, which includes singers, dancers, prostitutes, spies from neighboring states, and income tax, which in today's time we know it's a major source of revenue for the government, but in that time income tax was rarely found, and regarding income tax nothing much was written in ARTHASHASTRA. Now, regarding principles of taxation, as I already discussed, that we should consider one's ability to pay while imposing taxation, and tax system should be fair and equitable. It should be just in the society, and it should also not distort any economic decisions or create undue hardships on the part of the government. So that's what we should be keep in mind that's what we have to keep in mind while making out different rules and regulations for a taxation system. And taxation system should be simple, it should be clear, and it should be easy to understand to the taxpayers as well. And tax paying, all the procedures, that should not be complex to the people. It should be as easy as possible. Then only there will not be possibility of tax evasion or tax cheating by the taxpayers. He also believed that tax system or tax collection procedure should be transparent with clear accounting and auditing. Now let's move on to tax administration. Regarding how tax should be administered, he stated that the general government of the state required 18 ministers. Out of them, the taxation department was overseen by the 2 ministers at that time, definitely, and those ministers were known as Sulka. In the Atharva Veda, the word Sulka was used to refer to tax that was due by the traders in general. Kautilya used the names Samaharta and Samindhata to describe the Ministry of Revenue or taxation of the government. Samarhata is regarded as the head of tax and other revenue collection. Samarhata was also in charge of keeping an eye on how tariff revenues were used to calculate the gross income from the land. On the other hand, Samindhata's duties included building and maintaining Panyagraha. Panyagraha is a storehouse for the goods produced by the state for sale, and Kasthagara. Kasthagara means a storehouse of food production. Additionally, he made reference to Sulka Dhyaksha, who is the head of the tariff division of the Ministry of Revenue or taxation of the government at that time. And from this tax administration, what Kautilya pointed out in Arthashastra, we have come to understand that the tax levying, all the procedures, the system was very excellent. It's not just like in modern times we have a very sophisticated system. No, even ancient times, during the times of Maurya Empire, when Chandragupta Maurya was the king and prime minister was Kautilya, even at that time, the tax levying, all the procedures were excellent enough. So we cannot say that tax system at that time was somewhat less than today's time. Now let's understand what are the types of taxes which were laid down by Kautilya in Arthashastra. He has mentioned about different taxes which were imposed at that time, and they are quite similar to today's time, like custom duty, transaction tax were there, tax in cash, tax in kind, countervailing duties, road cess, and many other, and within brackets how they were known at that time has been written here. Now let's move on to relevance of Arthashastra in contemporary economic studies. This is very significant. So far we have understood what Kautilya has to offer, what are his views on taxation, what he presented in his book Arthashastra about taxation. That's what we have studied. But what is the relevance of studying Arthashastra, studying taxation, which is mentioned in the Arthashastra in today's time? What is the significance in modern world? So as we look, or as we have studied all the principles, administration, rates, or even other concepts related to taxation, we have come to understand that the tax system that prevailed during that time, somewhat around more than 2000 years ago, and a tax system that is prevailing in modern day, then that does not have much different. It is almost similar. For example, we can say Kautilya had specifically laid down the terms of taxation without any scope of arbitrariness, which even we follow nowadays. We do not want arbitrariness in the tax system. All the rules and regulations, how taxes will be collected, how it will be administered, everything should be well structured, well organized, and that is not just present in today's time, that was present even before in ancient times. Further, he talked about there should be a fixed timetable for payment of taxes, and also what share of the produce or product value is to be paid as tax. Similar to today's time, we know that we pay taxes at the end of the financial year. If I talk about India more specifically, at the end of the March month of every year, as we know that the financial year starts from the 1st April of a year to the 31st March of the next year. So this we consider as a fiscal or financial year, and accordingly we know that for that financial year we have to pay taxes, or we know when we need to pay taxes, what amount we need to pay taxes. So similarly at that time also all the all sorts of things like what amount one should pay, what should be the time of payment of taxes were known to everyone. Additionally, the stance of Kautilya on a kind of progressive taxation and ability to pay principle are followed in modern day practice also. See, we know Adam Smith. Adam Smith is regarded as the father of modern economics. He wrote Wealth of Nations in the year 1776. And many followers of Adam Smith, even some teachers, students who are studying economics, they consider Adam Smith is one of the first, or in fact the first political economist who talked about the relationship between politics and economics, who talked about what is the importance of wealth, what is the importance of law and order, what is the importance of taxation, how it should be administered. All sorts of things were discussed by Adam Smith in his book Wealth of Nations. But although we have come to understand that Adam Smith talked about all these things, but we cannot deny even before Adam Smith, Kautilya also talked about similar things in ARTHASHASTRA. So considering that, can we say Adam Smith is the first political economist? So if there is a question mark, we need to look back. We have to understand the root of every concept. And we know Adam Smith in his book Wealth of Nations, he talked about that about canons of taxation. That means what a taxation system must follow, what should be the rules and regulations, how a tax system should be administered. Regarding that, he laid down different canons like canon of economy, canon of convenience, canon of simplicity, and many other. So if we study these canons, not only Adam Smith, even after Adam Smith, many economists regarded different canons of taxation. So from those canons of taxation, we have come to understand a tax system should be efficient enough with characteristics of simplicity, transparency, understandability. So can we say these canons of taxation were just first to those economics? No, those are also present in ancient times in ARTHASHASTRA, which were discussed by Kautilya. The ability to pay principle of taxation, which talks about that we should impose taxes on people, on taxpayers, considering their ability to pay. We study a theory called ability to pay, theory of taxation, which is given by A.C.P. Gogoi. So from this study, we have come to understand ability to pay principle was also mentioned by Kautilya in ARTHASHASTRA. Can we say it is introduced by A.C.P. Gogoi in the field of economics? So again, a question mark. So from this study, we have come to understand all the things that you're talking about, progressive taxation, ability to pay principle, are not just new. Those were even talked by Kautilya in ARTHASHASTRA. Further, if we look, then he talked about, Kautilya talked that there should be proper record of the entire collection of tax, which is even done today. He also talked about there should be additional taxes for emergency situation, tax on liquor, levied during war or emergencies. This we see even many countries across the world. He also believed that we should impose higher taxes on objects that harm society, which is still relevant today. In order to reduce conspicuous consumption of people, we impose taxes on cigarettes, on alcohol, which is not just original to the modern economist. It could be traced back to the ideas of Kautilya in ARTHASHASTRA as well. He also talked about exempting taxes on agricultural land, and we find many developing nations still adhere to this idea. So there is a significant relevance of ARTHASHASTRA. All the ideas, not just of taxation, obviously, of wealth or development, all the ideas still have relevance in today's time. We just need to dive deeper. We have to understand we have to trace back that what is the root, what is basically from where it has been borrowed before tagging anything as modern or new. Because from this understanding, we have come to understand that all the ability to pay principal, progressive taxation, canons of taxation, all we believed that those were given by Adam Smith or ECP or modern economists, those were in fact discussed by Kautilya way before in ancient times. So definitely ancient knowledge system does have a significant relevance in today's time. So at the end of the lecture, I'd like to state that Kautilya's views on taxation provide us with insights into the principles of taxation, tax administration, tax policy, and also what should the basis for a tax system, and what the principles, all the rules, regulations which are laid down by Kautilya in Arthashastra could be followed by all the policymakers, all the economists even today, because they still have so much relevance if any economists, any policymakers or government want to establish a fair, efficient and effective tax system. But Kautilya, one thing can be stated that unlike Adam Smith or any other Western economists, Kautilya did not write any book specifically on economics. But his ideas which are laid down in Arthashastra, which were discussed in Arthashastra, have so much significance in contemporary world of political economics. And from that perspective, definitely we can say, or we can give a huge credit to the work done by Kautilya in Arthashastra, or he could definitely be regarded not just as a philosopher or a great thinker, but as a political economist, two of the greatest economic thinkers in history. And with that, I conclude my today's lecture. I hope you had a great time understanding this. Thank you. Have a good day.